How do you notice someone needs to be nurtured?
First off, how do you select the person to nurture? You don't nurture everybody. You can't do that. You're in a company. What you do is you look for somebody you think has a lot of capabilities but aren't living up to the potential because sometimes they have a poor image of themselves. They've been beaten down. An example, I can give you an example of that. I hired there was a company called Auto-trol. It was in the computer-aided design before anybody else. They had a digitizer. And the founder of that company, her and her husband, got forced out by the investors. And no one would hire her in the industry, and I hired her. And she was the most difficult person in the world to manage. Not because of her, because other officers would take her calls. So my thing was they had to pay me every time they took her call. So nobody would take her calls. And we became very, very good friends. And she thanked me because no one would hire her. And I hired her in the industry because of her skills and all the people she knew. But when you meet someone like that, you have to pump them back up again. They've been beaten down so much, they don't think they have a lot of value. And those are the people that you look for. When I went in to install computer-aided design systems, I'd tell the person, it's not always the best person on a drafting table. It's the guy that's so bored because he's been drafting for 10 years that's going to be a star because there's something new. And that's what you look for. You look for the people that want to rise above the occasion. I had a guy in Detroit working for me in sales. My vice president of finance used to get on me because Rick would take off the whole summer because he was divorced and he had custody of his kids in the summer, his sale. My vice president of finance said, Jerry, just think what would happen if you'd have him working. He's the #1 salesman. He does double what you ask him to do. And I said, if I made him give up his summers, he wouldn't have quit working for our company. So he can do what he wants to do. And I think that's the difference. In a structured environment, you have to have flexibility. And I don't think managers are taught that. Managers are taught this is the way the book is, here's a policy and procedure manual, follow it. Walk into a company, the first thing I do is give me a book this thick of policies and procedures. I don't want all those policies and procedures. I want people to think outside the box. Every entrepreneurial company I work for probably works 20-hour days. There's nobody that goes home at 8 to 5. I mean, they just don't do that. And that's what you look for, the person that's making an extra effort. The person that's coming to you with the problems, that's the guy to nurture. They come to you and say, gee, this guy was telling me if I could do this, he'd buy this. And you say, okay, let's go talk to the guy. And you find out how many units they really buy. And that's a person that's coming back to you and giving you feedback. Without that feedback, there's nothing. But you select the person you want to nurture. There's just too many days that you can't nurture somebody, so you have to be very careful who you nurture. And you look for those rewards.